Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews. This is my review for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is my full-on spoilery review. So I'll start off with the spoiler warning. If you have not seen the film Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, then click off of this video. I'll tell you what you can do. You can click on the link in the description below for my spoiler-free initial reaction. It's just a live video I recorded as soon as I came back from the theater. It's spoiler-free. It's actually pretty vague, but if you want to hear my thoughts on it before you see the film, you can click on that, and then after you see the film, then you can come back to this one. So if you have seen it, then continue forward, and I am going to dive headfirst into spoilers, so anyone who hasn't seen it should be gone now. So immediately, I do need to correct something I did say in my spoiler-free reaction for all 15 of you, literally, who have watched that video at this point. I was wrong. It doesn't take place in between Infinity War and Endgame. It is after Endgame. And I made that mistake. Well, first of all, because they talked about the blip a lot, and they didn't talk about people returning. But then it occurs to me later that the blip actually does refer to after people returned. So I was thinking the blip was when people disappeared. So I got confused. And then also, I should have taken the hint that there's still streets full of people. So I should have realized that. I think what ultimately really threw me off, and the clue that I said I saw that leaned toward this being closer to Infinity Wars, was the fact that Bruce Banner was a human again. He's not Smart Hulk anymore, and also Carol Danvers' hair is long. So I thought, oh, that's before she cut her hair, and this is before Bruce Banner turned into Smart Hulk. But I also missed that Bruce Banner had his arm in a sling, and that is from the snap. So this is definitely after Endgame. I was wrong. In fact, one of the videos I watched, I think it was New Rockstars, they pinpointed, they did some math and did some fancy things and figured it out that this is actually taking place at around the same time as Spider-Man Far From Home, the one that came out right after Endgame, because that film was taking place in July 2024, like 8 months after Endgame or something like that. And so Shang-Chi apparently is taking place around that same time. I forgot the formula that they figured out, how that worked. It's something to do with Shang-Chi's t-shirt and all these things, but it made sense. It does make sense. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to say that this is taking place around the same time as Spider-Man Far From Home. So it's definitely after Endgame. So that does change things up a bit as far as that mid-credit scene and what implications we might have for that beacon. The rings are summoning something. There's like a beacon of some sort. So that's interesting, but I'll get to that when I get to the end. We'll circle back around to that idea. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first act with the kind of the introduction of the characters, and I have watched more than one video actually where they said that they liked the first act the best. And I'm assuming those people were able to restrain themselves from watching the trailer, because I actually like the first act the least, because I feel like I've already seen the entire first act through the trailers. Like, literally, every major scene was featured heavily in the trailers. Every major scene from the first act. So you got the bus fight, you got the fight in the scaffolding, you've got the big the cage match with the Abomination and Wong, and then you also have Shang-Chi fighting his sister in the cage match. All of that was in the trailers. Like, it was just all out in the trailers. So to me, I feel like for the first act, like, I've seen most of this already. So it's hard for me to say that was the best part of it. But with that said, seeing the full bus fighting scene was still a lot of fun. It was a really kick-ass scene, but even more kick-ass was the scaffolding scene. And I actually think we only really got glimpses of that in the trailer, so we got more and a more expanded version of that in the film. And I think that is like my favorite fight scene in this film. And as I mentioned in my spoiler-free review, I've never been a huge kung fu movie person. I'm not really like fight scenes is not really why I watch these movies or really any movies. Actually, little side note, I uploaded my top 10 Star Wars Jedi videos, and I had a request from one of my loyal commenters, Life in the Void. Thank you. Big shout out to you. Asking me to, rank fight scenes in Star Wars, and I had to respond, fight scenes, this is not my thing. I don't really care about them. So with that said, I was impressed with this fight scene in the scaffolding. So I definitely did enjoy that. We start setting up the characters a little bit, but again, I feel like a lot of that was already disseminated in the trailer. Even the fake out was in the trailer, where they try to make you think that it's Shang-Chi getting in this fancy car, but really it's this other dude who's driving up for Shang-Chi to park the car because he works as a valet. Even that was in the trailer. Like, that's supposed to be like this fake out, but I already saw that. So, anyways, so, that's kind of the first act. I do want to take a minute here and let's talk about the character of Shang-Chi and how he's developed. Even though we do get a lot of it in the trailers, the film then expands on that. That really gets into his dirty issues. And we did get hints of that in the trailer. But I think, jumping ahead a little bit to the ending, having to face his father was an absolute necessity. So the character arc for this character was really good. I think this is one of the better origin stories in the Marvel Universe, actually. I think this is kind of a one-on-one on how to develop a character that you're introducing into the Marvel Universe. I thought it was very well done. And then we have Katie, who's kind of his sidekick. I thought the actress was great with her. She added a lot of comic relief. I loved how she mentioned about the Hotel California thing, that she did that in high school. And then when the one dude is about to attack her, she starts screaming Hotel California lyrics. It doesn't quite work for her this time, but luckily Shang-Chi's sister is there to save her. So, yeah, I really enjoyed the characters in this film. I think Marvel has gotten pretty good about developing their characters. Now we move into Act 2, and this is where it gets a little more interesting, because this is where, I didn't know what was going to happen because it wasn't done to death in the trailers. They did show us in the trailer just kind of him arriving at the compound, or whatever you call that thing, with the helicopter, and the headquarters, the 10 Rings, or whatever. And this is where it got interesting, because you learn here that Wenwu, who is Shang-Chi's father, is not actually trying to get Shang-Chi back into the fold and to do gangster stuff and go kill people, which is what I assumed from watching the trailers, that he was trying to get him, it was kind of going to be like a gangster type thing. Okay, you need to get back into the family, except not a mobster Italian movie. But I thought it was going to be that kind of thing. But then you learn here that Wenwu is hearing his dead wife's voice calling to him, and that she is actually behind this prison in the village of Ta Lo, where she is from, and he needs to go and rescue her. And that is what he wanted his kids for, to go join him in rescuing their mother. So that was an interesting turn. I like that, actually. I, there's differing opinions on this. I definitely have heard the opinion that they would have preferred Wenwu to just be the straight up villain. I think that would have been cliche. I actually really like this instead. I liked that he is instead going to do something that he thinks is noble and good. Now, let me take a second here to talk about Wenwu, because I think this was an excellent villain. I think this, to me, is what Killmonger should have been. Everybody just talks about how great Killmonger is. I think this villain is way better, because this is a multi-dimensional villain. Now, I'll just say my pet peeve right off the top of the bat is that they do the Star Trek thing where Star Trek always, like, throws out this large number of years like it's nothing. Like, oh, he's been there for 6 million years, or they've been doing that for 1,000 years. So here's 1,000 years that he has had eternal life and has been this, conqueror. And then he meets this woman and gives up the rings and gives everything up after 1,000 years of being a conqueror. 1,000 years is a long, long time. It's hard for me to swallow that someone who had been doing that for 1,000 years would be able to drop it just like that, even for a woman. I had a hard time with that. But with that said, I thought that this was an excellent character and an excellent acting job as well. And because you do kind of relate to him, he wanted to give up. He genuinely did want to give up his life of crime. And he genuinely just wants to have the love of his life back with him. So I thought all of that was very well developed. Now here in the second act, this is where we get the character that I alluded to in my spoiler-free review that I thought we would never, ever, ever see again in the MCU, and that's Trevor Slattery, the actor played by Ben Kingsley, who was pretending to be the Mandarin. And by the way, I love Wenwu's line about, oh, this American terrorist was pretending to be me, and he called me, he named me after a chicken, a type of chicken. And he also made reference to an orange, which I thought was funny. But they bring this character back in, and he wasn't that. There's this little short that shows that the real Mandarin is coming after him. It came out in 2014, a little short film that I've just heard people reference. I guess it's on Disney Plus. I guess I could go watch it. I've never really bothered with it. But so he wasn't that. But even still, I never thought we'd ever see this character reappear in a film. And here he is, and I liked it. I thought he provided great comic relief. I didn't love his comic relief in the Iron Man 3 film. I like it here. I like Morris. I'll get into the creatures a little bit more, but I like how he communicates with Morris. I like how he was like, oh, you see him too? I thought I was hallucinating him this whole time. I thought that this character worked very well in this film. As comic relief, and then he kind of, fades away a little bit toward the end when I didn't feel like we really needed to see him a lot in the third act, so I was okay with him sort of going away. And I think one of the last times you see him is that really funny scene where he's playing dead, and Morris comes up to him. He's like, "Don't worry, I'm not dead. I'm just playing dead. I'm just acting." And then Morris kind of turns over. That was cute. So I liked how they incorporated this character into this film, believe it or not. I was not a huge fan of the Mandarin twist in Iron Man 3 either, and in fact, going back and watching Iron Man 3 somewhat recently, I actually hate it more than I remember hating it. I would actually put it just slightly behind Iron Man 2 as the worst film in the MCU. So I like how they were kind of course correcting a little bit with the Iron Man 3 mistakes in this film. I really enjoyed it. This character, Wenwu, a million times better than the character from Iron Man 3, what was his name? Killian, who ended up being the Mandarin. Way better here. So, love the character development with the villain in this film. Okay, then we get into Act 3 and we go to Ta Lo and we get to see all of these mythical creatures. These are all from Chinese mythology. Some of them I've recognized just from other, works of art, books, films, whatever, that I've seen that include Chinese mythical creatures, although I'm not super familiar with Chinese mythology. It's really funny, but I was reading an article that Kevin Feige was saying that when they did the initial screening of this film, that a lot of people were confused, thinking that they had Pokemon in this movie, because a lot of the Pokemon are based on actual mythological creatures from Chinese mythology. So people were like, "Oh, hey, it's a Pokemon." No, it's a creature from Chinese mythology, especially the nine-tailed fox, which I forget the actual name for that. I thought that was very pretty. I thought it was very very visually stunning. The whole sequence with Ta Lo, we get the introduction of Michelle Yeoh's character, who I kept thinking it's Emperor Giorgio, because I just watched too much Star Trek. But she was excellent as always, and she's playing Shang-Chi's aunt. And this is where we get into the really artistic fighting, and actually we first see it with the flashback scene with Shang-Chi's parents meeting each other, where they first fight each other. But then we get more of that with Michelle Yeoh's character, Non, I believe her name was. It's very artistic, very dancey, and I know it's a specific type of martial arts that was also in I heard it was also featured in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which I did not like, because I thought there was just no plot. I didn't understand what's happening, and it would just seem to drag on forever and ever. But here, they are able to incorporate that very artistic dance style, magical style of martial arts into a film that actually does have a plot and character development. So I really enjoyed it. It's very visually pleasing to the eye. It's really beautiful, and I love how magic is incorporated into their form of martial arts. The whole mythos of Ta Lo was very, very interesting to me. I really enjoyed this whole setting. And then in the end, we've got the big CGI battle. You know what? I loved the creatures in this. I loved the dragon. It kind of reminded me of Falcor. A lot of things remind me of Falcor from Neverending Story, but it kind of did. I'm sorry, it did. And fighting against, I forget what it was called, the evil beast. And I loved all of that. I'm getting a little tired of people complaining about CGI battles in Marvel, and then also complaining about there's too much talking in Loki. Where's our CGI battle? There's going to be CGI battles, and I enjoyed this one. I thought it was very well done. And then we get into the crux of the matter, which is the face-off between Shang-Chi and his father. And as I alluded to earlier, this absolutely needed to happen. And I like that once Wing Wu figured out, he screwed up, like he cared about his son. He wanted to save his son, but it's very heartbreaking, tragic scene when he dies and he's the villain, and it definitely was an emotional scene. And then we get a great origin story now, where the rings have transferred over to Shang-Chi and they are now gold instead of blue, because of the gold magic. It was more his mother's magic. I think that is more of the good magic. And voila, we have an Avenger now. No get into the details of just how he knows how to use the rings. I guess it just comes by instinct, so that's fine. Let's talk about that arrow, though. The arrow. So, huge suspension of disbelief, whatever. I'm talking about Katie's arrow. I can already see what they're going to say in the pitch meeting. I'm like, wait, so she just killed this creature with a dead-on shot with an arrow, even though she just started learning how to shoot arrows a day ago. And they're going to say, well, you know, we put a line in there just pointing out how she just learned a day ago and she was able to hit this creature. So it's okay because we put a line in there about that. So, whatever, you know, I'll suspend disbelief for that. Sure, why not? It was a happy, feel-good ending. Great. So I loved the third act. Much more so than the first act, which I had already seen a million times on the trailer. So I thought this was a great ending and a great start to a new Avenger, a new character in the MCU. So now I do want to touch on, though, the post-credit and mid-credit and post-credit scenes, though. Okay, so I loved the mid-credit scene, especially I love the ending where he goes, or they end up doing Hotel California and karaoke with Wong. I thought that was great. As I mentioned in my spoiler-free review, some of the humor worked for me and some of it didn't, but I did like how they were always like, oh, we should go to bed and get some rest. And they end up doing karaoke, and I love how they put Wong into that. But burying the lead here, we start to get a little bit in the origin of the rings, and Carol Danvers has no idea what they are. They don't remind her of anything from any planet that she is familiar with, any species that she is familiar with. Bruce Banner points out that they are much older than 1,000 years, and they are from another dimension, it appears. So we're getting into the multiverse of madness. These rings, the origin of them, I think we might get a little more clarity, not even needing to wait for the next Shang-Chi film. We might get a little more hints at it in the multiverse of madness. And what is this beacon? So I think that is definitely foreshadowing something. Shuma Gorath, perhaps, or some other multi-dimensional beast or villain from another dimension that we may see in the multiverse of madness. But these rings are sort of a beacon to that. I found that very, very, very interesting. Also, another good bit of humor where Carol Danvers is like, yeah, so Bruce Banner's got my number. I'm out of here. And Bruce Banner's like, I never got her number. That was pretty funny. Anyways, great mid-credit scene. The post-credit scene, it's not like as bad as like the ants playing the drums. This is relevant. We do see that Shang-Chi's sister didn't dismantle the 10 rings like she said she was going to. She's actually rebuilding it. Now there's been speculation on whether she's going to be evil, whether she's going to be fighting for good. I got the impression that she's reimagining them to be more of a force for good. She has female fighters for the first time when they were not allowed before. But we'll see. I think that is something we may not get a lot of follow-up on for a while. Whereas the mid-credit scene, I think we may not have to wait to see Shang-Chi again to get some further hints about the origins of the 10 Rings. So there you have it. Shang-Chi, New Avenger, great origin film. Had a lot of fun with it. So I'm going to go ahead and give my rating out of 10, with 1 being the lowest score, 10 being the highest possible score. And I already gave it in my spoiler-free review. It hasn't changed. I'll reiterate it again. It is an 8. Not a 9 or a 10. Not one of the best things ever. I've heard a lot of people say that it's a top 5 Marvel film, or it is the best in Phase 4. Personally, I still got WandaVision and Loki above it, and What If has a good chance to be above it as well. But it was good. It was very good. A solid 8. Fun film. It's a Marvel film. A great origin story. Really enjoyed it. And now I am interested in this character. I do want to see this character again. So the film did its job, and it is a great, solid 8.